Hello, my epic friend. Can you believe we're at the end of the year? Oh my goodness. The next time we will speak will be the beginning of 2025. So I have a special podcast episode for you today. And as we're closing out the end of this year, I think it's a fabulous time to reflect upon the year and talk about and think about what it is that we want to let go of. Yes, when we let go of something, it means that we make more space to invite other things in. So if we want to develop healthy habits, if we want to develop other habits, we can't just keep adding on things to our life, right? Our life becomes cluttered and jammed, and we want to declutter. We want to take away things and make space for some newness to come into our life, some new habits to come into our life. So I thought as we're ending this year, it would be a great time to reflect on those things that we don't want to bring into the next year. So I'm calling that the art of letting go. A lot of times that's really hard for people to do. We want to let go, we want to let go, we want to let go, but then it becomes like, how are we going to let this go? It's been a part of my life for so long. It's been my identity for so long. It's the way I've operated for so long. I've habitized this in my life. It could be drinking, right? It could be whatever. And whatever it is that we want to let go, we want to let go of it because we want to remind ourselves that it's not serving us anymore. Maybe it was a habit that served or protected us or felt like it protected us or provided us some comfort or some joy or some satisfaction in the past. But now when we do those things, it's not giving us that same level of joy or that same amount of pleasure or that same amount of satisfaction. And so that's one way to kind of figure out like, oh, if I'm not deriving as much pleasure as I thought I was, if I'm judging myself now more than I ever have over this activity or this behavior that I'm doing, maybe it's time for me to just let it go. And so when we're thinking about letting things go, it can be really challenging. It can be really hard. As I mentioned, it might have been something that we've been doing for a long, long time. And so when we want to let go of something, it could feel like, what will take its place? Right? It could feel like a hole in our life. So when we're letting things go, it can be hard. And so I want to give some tips around how to let things go so that you can put these into action in your life. One is, I think it's really helpful to feel into when something is time to let go. And I call this listening to your body. Might be your mind is telling you, gosh, this habit of drinking has gotten a little out of hand. I really want to cut back, scale back, or even let it go in the new year. Or this way of eating, or the choices I'm making, or the way I'm feeling about something, it's just not serving me. I'm listening to my body and I'm hearing it say, oh, gosh, when you drink that much the next day, I just don't feel good. I just don't feel like I remember the conversations. I'm just not feeling good about myself. It is just time to let this go. It could be it's time to let go of that harsh inner critic that you have that's always putting you down or telling you you're not good enough or this is not enough or that's not enough, right? All that not enoughness. And maybe it's time to let go of that harsh inner critic that feels like it's helping us. Because if we don't have it around, maybe the alternative is we're worried that we'll just let everything go and we won't measure up, right? And so that can feel scary. But if your mind and your body are telling you, no, this doesn't feel good, it's causing me more stress, I can't enjoy life as much as I want, the joy in my life is lessening, right? And so looking at that, it's like, oh, maybe this is a sign that I need to let the judgment go, become more self-compassionate. And I know this is a big one because when I'm working with women, a lot of times they think that they have to work harder at something and that they have to beat themselves up more so they can just snap to it, get into shape, do the thing. And so they put all this pressure on themselves and only to find that it creates more stress in their body and they're actually less likely to do the thing that they actually want to be doing. And so letting go of that harsh inner critic, whew, that is a big one, my friends. And I invite you into letting that inner critic go and see for yourself if it actually makes the process easier. I like that saying, try softer rather than try harder. A lot of times that try harder mentality only gets us so far. And then when we switch gears and we try softer, it's like, oh, this can be more enjoyable. This can actually allow more flow and ease into my life. I mean, think about when you drink less, you're letting go of all that alcohol. How much more ease and less stress you have in your life when you let go of hanging on to craving that alcohol, having that alcohol, buying that alcohol, pouring that alcohol, drinking that alcohol, recovering from that alcohol, right? Like that feels like prison. It doesn't feel freeing. Whereas letting go is so freeing. Letting it go. You could take it or leave it. You don't care if you have it in your life or not. That to me sounds like amazing freedom. So the first tip was really to listen to your body. It could be your heart knows. It could be your gut knows. It could be your mind telling you it's time to let something go. It could be a friendship, a relationship, right? The relationship with alcohol, the relationship you have with your body. Maybe you've been so harsh and not kind to your body. And now you want to move into the new year, honoring your body, listening to your body, connecting with yourself again. That feels so good. Knowing what your soul wants, knowing your purpose, your meaning, the calling you have. These are all forms of connecting and listening to that inner voice inside. I love doing these inner voice sessions with ladies and really helping them connect with themselves so that we're not buffering with these things outside of us that are only giving us false joy and not real, heart-centered, soul-fulfilling joy. So I love listening to your body. One way you can do that too is through movement. A lot of times people say, oh, I can't sit still and listen, or I think I have to meditate to listen to my body. You don't. That's one way, but there are other ways that your body speaks. And so sometimes through movement, our bodies can speak to us too. So listening to your body. The next tip I have when it comes to letting go is really, it can feel scary for some women to let go of alcohol or to let go of whatever it is they're trying to change. Maybe it's a toxic relationship. Maybe it's the way they speak to someone. It's just been too harsh. And maybe it's the way they speak to themselves. Maybe they want to let go of putting other people's opinion of them above their opinion of themselves. That can be a big one, right? Because we want to fit in. We want to be liked by others. We want people to think well of us. And sometimes we sacrifice so much that we're like, oh gosh, I didn't like the way I acted, or I put my own needs aside to prioritize everyone else's. And so maybe it's time to let that go. And so when you do begin to let that go, guess what happens? You're making space because you're clearing out some of the decluttering that's inside and you're making this new space. And that could feel uncertain. That could feel scary. That can feel like fear shows up. And what I want to say is to embrace that emotional discomfort until it becomes more familiar. And when it becomes more familiar, it will begin to become more comfortable. So when we declutter something, right, it can free up the space, it can feel good, but then there's this void. There's like, oh gosh, I gave up drinking, now what? Or I said I'm only going to have a few drinks a week. Now what? I've had those drinks. And then we get this void and this space. And what comes up? These emotions of uncertainty, these emotions of, oh my gosh, now what? How am I going to fill this time? What am I going to do? Right? So embracing those emotions of discomfort until they become more familiar and then they won't feel as uncomfortable. So great book, Face the Fear and Do It Anyway. That's a really good book that talks about how to embrace fear. Because all fear is just knowing the uncertainty, what's going to be next. And the brain sometimes doesn't like uncertainty. So it will fill it with self-sabotaging behaviors just to feel certain or just to numb out the feeling of uncertainty. But when we can embrace the uncertainty and go, oh, that's interesting. That just gives me more time, more space to do other things. Guess what will happen? The brain will come up with other things. right? If I embrace that I'm bored and that's the feeling that feels uncomfortable, I'm only going to sit there for so long before my brain is going to be like, this is so boring. Let's go for a walk. Or this is so boring. Let's do X, Y, and Z. Your brain's not going to want to sit there and be bored forever. The brain will come up with something to do, someone to call, someone to text, something to do. and I would argue those would be healthier than having another drink and having another drink and having another drink, right? To fill that boredom. So embracing your emotions. And this is why I pulled out that course that we have inside of Epic U called How to Master Your Emotions and How to Live with Emotional Health. So that is available on my website as a standalone course because I know us Gen Xers have not been taught how to handle our emotions. And I'm speaking for myself. If you recall, one of my major emotions that led me to overdrink was how I handled my anger. I was shown how to handle anger in an unproductive manner growing up, and I thought that's just how people handled anger. We all got mad, we yelled, we drank, we did this, we did that. And unbeknownst to me, that's not how everybody handled anger. Some people really had a good anger management strategy, and I did not. I wanted alcohol because that felt that would be more safe to drink than to do the other things I would do with my anger, like break dishes, right? Like get mad at people. And so alcohol became a wonderful coping strategy. And it wasn't until I stopped and slowed my drinking that I thought, whoa, this anger feels so unsafe in my body. I'm going to become this enraged woman and take it out in a way that doesn't feel good if you take my alcohol away. So I had to learn how to cope with anger, how it feels in my body, and what I can do to discharge it. That didn't require hitting, breaking things, right? Yelling, any of that. And so now I have a way to discharge the anger that doesn't involve all the ways I used to manage it in the past. And that's what my wish is for you. If you have problems with certain emotions, to learn tools that I teach inside of this course where you can be okay with loneliness. You can be okay with anger and not manage it with food or alcohol or overworking or doing other behaviors that you don't feel serve you right now in this phase of life. Maybe they served you in the past because you didn't know any other way. There are other ways to manage our emotions. And I pull out the Gen Xers because that's mostly who I'm seeing that really can benefit from this. And I think it's because they're now teaching this stuff in schools. Like my daughter is really good at managing her emotions. She had classes on this. And this is something that we just didn't get. And so I made that available for you on the website, epicu.com. If you want to look at the shop page, you will find how to master your emotional health on that page. And I will tell you, most of us drink because we can't handle certain emotions. It's boredom, it's stress, it's loneliness. The data say the reason most women wind up over drinking is because of sadness and loneliness. Those are the two biggest reasons. And so I'm not saying to get comfortable with loneliness. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying sit in your loneliness longer. I'm saying solve for loneliness in a productive manner, in a healthy manner, in a helpful manner, rather than an unproductive or unhealthy manner. And so you're going to get a lot of tips on how to do that inside the course. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, when we're talking about the art of letting go, is that you must think about a part of you must die in order for new or rebirth of you to begin. So I call this a part of you to die to let another part of you blossom. I have a great reminder. It's when I was in Costa Rica at the beginning of this year. My family and I went over Christmas holiday and into the new year. And I'll show this if you're watching YouTube. I can't say these bad words on the podcast because I want a clean podcast. But this is inside my planner, if you could see it on the screen, if you're watching the video. And this I keep as part of the planner that I carry around. And it's a great reminder to just let it go. And then I also have a sticker that says, "You are amazing," because we are all amazing and we are all uniquely created, right? So I have amazing gifts that maybe other people don't have. And I want to be reminded that I could just let things go that aren't serving me and so that I could be more amazing in my life. And so by letting things die that need to die, I'm making space for things to bloom that I want to bloom, for ways that I want to evolve, ways that I want to create, ways that I want to love and encourage others, ways that I want to lift up myself, because when I lift up myself, people are encouraged to do that for themselves. It's like this energy that becomes contagious. When I saw a woman handle alcohol in a way I wanted to handle alcohol, she was an encourager for me. She was my guiding light. She was showing me a way that I didn't know would be possible for me. Once you cross this line, I was told you can never go back to being a normal drinker, and that just didn't feel right for me. I was listening to my body, I was listening to my mind, I was listening to my gut, and I was embracing some uncomfortable emotions, and I was willing to let a part of me die, that overdrinker part, in order for me to blossom as somebody who can take it or leave it. And that's the process I did through different steps that I teach inside of Epic You and Drink Less Lifestyle, because that's what worked for me. And that's what I want to help others achieve, because it's so important to take care of yourself and your health. When you don't have your health, my friends, I talked about it in the last podcast, that's all you think about is how to get your health back. That is your number one precious resource. Time doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. If you don't have your health, oh my gosh, you can't think of anything else. So having your health is so important and so meaningful. If you're looking for another resource about letting go, I do want to recommend this book by David Hodkins called Letting Go. It was one of my favorite books years ago when I read it. It's been a long time since I read it. I like his other book a little bit better that he has out, but this one's really good. I have a lot of it highlighted, as you'll see, as I'm thumbing through it on YouTube. Really good. Talks about how to let go. I think it's easier to let things go when you are younger. I find that as we accumulate life experiences, as we go through life, some of us have had more challenges than others. Some of us have had relationships that didn't go the way we planned. And I will say, I find many women hanging on to that baggage, hanging on like it's a reflection of something wrong inside of them. And I just want to remind you that there's nothing wrong inside of you. Sometimes relationships don't work out. Sometimes we get placed in circumstances that aren't best for our thriving and surviving, but we don't have to hang on to that baggage. And that's what I really want to leave you with on this podcast, is that you can let it go. And there is an art to it. It's much more of an art than it is a science, although there's some science to it, but it's more of an art. And I hope by sharing these 3 tips with you, that you would think about those tips and maybe even write down on a piece of paper, take one piece of paper out, put a line down the middle. And on the left-hand side of that page, talk about all the things you want to leave behind this year, all the things you want to let go of, all the grievances, all the pain, all the sorrow, all the things that you don't want in your mind, in your heart, or in your soul, or even in your body moving forward. You kind of just want to say, RIP, rest in peace. I don't want you a part of my life anymore. Not this pain, not this struggle, not this grievance, not this childhood memory, not whatever. And really think about that list. Really sit with it and wish it well and wish it goodbye. And on the second half of that page, on the other side of that line, on the right-hand side of the page, now that you've left that behind, there's a void. There's space. You've let that half go. Now dream and also put down on that page what you want to invite into your life for next year. What would feel amazing to you? What relationships would you love to expand and focus more on? Maybe it's your relationship with your health. Maybe it's your relationship with you as you are this beautiful, amazing, epic being that you are. How can you get in touch with that and let that bloom and take root and focus on that? Because now you've created the space for it. And that, my friend, is the power of letting go. As we close, I want to read an email that I got from Light Watkins. If you don't know Light Watkins, he has a podcast that's wonderful. He's a spiritual teacher. I sign up for his newsletter. I've read some of his stuff to you in the past. I talk about him and post a lot of stuff inside of Epic You that comes from him because he's so inspirational. And he sings to my heart with his words. And so I wanted to read a newsletter that he put out, or a blog that he put out just recently, and share that with you. It's entitled Until We Let Go. Sometimes it takes more strength to let go than to hold on, because letting go forces us to sit in the uncertainty of not being in control. The truth is, we are never in control, but holding on gave us the illusion of control, until even that becomes too clouded and too painful, leaving us with no choice but to let go. Here's what we consider after letting go. We can finally see. We can see the situation for what it truly was, a valuable growth experience. We can see the strength of our heart. We can see opportunities that align more deeply with what we want to create for ourselves. And none of that becomes visible until we let go. I think that's such a beautiful way to end this podcast and to end this year, and to invite in good energy and amazingness in the next year. All right, my friend, it's so wonderful to be with you. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and I will see you next time.